Just realized there's like 3 snakes right next to me. Hey guys. Ew. So this is gonna be a trip from Canada to Costa Rica. Why Costa Rica? Well, I have some friends there and I want to make a go at teaching English overseas. Costa Rica is just a beautiful place. I really miss the ocean. You know, I'm only 1,000 miles away here in Minnesota. The climate is perfect for me, and they have a lot of focus on environmental conservation and other things that I'm interested in. Why do the motorcycle trip and not fly there?
We made it. Vivos.
My bike is illegal right now, so this is probably one of the crazier things I've ever done. I hope I don't go to jail. It just gets better and better. With very little motorcycle experience, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. I just knew it would be an incredible ride. I spent one more night on the border of Canada and the US, which I considered a trial run. I worked out how I would carry all of my gear, tested out my camping equipment, and figured out how to survive while traveling by motorcycle. Going to Canada allowed me to learn from a few stupid mistakes I made, like how to pull my 400-pound bike out of a ditch without breaking my back. During my first official day on tour, I made my way back home, to Minneapolis, where I would do some last-minute tweaking with my gear and saying goodbye to family and friends.
Tell me about love. I'm a dream. You're a little underdone. The plans are brittle. You little one. Take me to the lake. We could act like chums. She's underdone. Take me to the sun. Make it run winter bun.
I spent some time at home, and I said goodbye to all of the people and animals around. Lastly, I packed up all of my things, and I was just about ready to go. I feel like that's the last shower I'll take in a while. Alright, done packing. I'm at about 70 pounds of equipment, including my clothes, my electronics, things for making this documentary, all that stuff. Probably be under 80 pounds when I have food and water with me, which is perfect. I wanted to have it where I could, if need be, carry every single piece of equipment with me a short distance, like a few hundred yards. That gives me just a little bit more sense of security knowing that I don't have to leave anything on my bike. And there's a slight problem. I heard a little chirping coming from my engine. I'm pretty worried about it because I've already fixed so many different things on my motorcycle. So I'm gonna take it in early today, see if they can get it done, whatever it is, but I don't want to leave on a bike that's soon to fail, so just hoping I can make it out of Minneapolis. And I just got a call from the shop, and it sounds like they're already done with the motorcycle. They didn't find any major issues, they just decided to give it a carb clean, so it's gonna set me back another couple $100 probably, but it's worth it. Alright, this is it. The bike sounds fantastic. It feels great, so I'm super happy about that. As I was handing Mike the credit card to pay for the carb clean, which was $180, he folded up the bill and told me it was on him. So I just got a free carb clean. Super happy about that. Thank you, Mike. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm feeling good overall. First stop is South Dakota. Alright, let's do this. Begin. Just really hoping this bike makes it. And just as everything was going smoothly on my first day on the road, I ran into a problem. I left my tank on reserve, which caused an inaccurate reading of my fuel level, which meant running out of gas in the middle of nowhere. I walked 1 mile to the nearest farm, and someone helped me out with a bit of gas. This caused me to show up very late to my first campsite. Tonight was not a great night. I rode about 250 miles on my first day to a small town outside of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I was able to find free campsites from none other than freecampsites.net. The next morning, some storms started rolling in. This would be my first battle with the weather.
Lights go down and you're ready for the open road. Maybe there's a chance for show. Never really knowing if you'll be on the
Lots of corn, lots of cows. Really hope it's dry in the Badlands.
realize that I'm gonna be the one who takes your hand while we're walking through the avenue. Lord, I'm your man, I wanna take you. Lord, I'm your man, who's gonna make you? Then you're so far away from here to be on your own. And then you're so far away from here to be all alone. Never had a reason or a will to deceive you, girl. Maybe there's a chance for sure. Never really knowing if you'll be on the other side when it's time to come.
Here's what I had for dinner last night. Gas station meat and cheese and half a bag of almonds. I arrived at Sage Creek campsite after a spectacular ride through the alien landscape of the Badlands. The area was full of great wildlife. The stop at this campsite allowed me to dry some wet clothes, but it didn't keep me safe from the nearly freezing temperatures. So I was just hiking near camp and I saw something in the distance. I think that was the first wild buffalo I've ever seen. Now I'm sitting on this big mound of what looks like clay. So far on this trip there's been good and bad. Probably my number one worst thing so far is putting earplugs in my ears. I have these little tiny baby ears. It's very hard to fit an earplug in them, and when I do put an earplug in, it feels like it is stretching my ear. So I often get very sore ears after wearing earplugs on the motorcycle. Probably the second worst is the cold and wet. It's very, very cold. Bad thing number 3 would be lack of sleep. I'm still adjusting to camp time, so whenever I get to my campsites, I just don't fall asleep right away. And then number 4, I would say just being organized. I have stuff all over the place in my bags. The good things so far, number 1, the motorcycle got me to the Badlands from Canada. That's over 1,000 miles traveled. Number 2, although I am cold and wet, all of my important stuff stayed dry. Number 3, I met some really cool people already. It's always fun meeting other travelers on the road. Another good thing so far is that I'm finally settling into being on the road. Next stop, Rapid City, my first major city. I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like. From my campsite, I took a quick ride to Harley-Davidson for some more gear. I'm here for warmer clothes. This place is huge. Got my gear. Rainproof pants and gaiters. From Harley-Davidson, I rode to Russell's house, my first couch surfing host on this trip. So here's where I stayed last night. A very comfortable air mattress with access to a hot shower, which was fantastic. Couch surfing. Pick a city, make a friend. There are millions of hosts on Couchsurfing offering their homes as a place to stay for free. It uses a pay-it-forward system that you should honor by hosting people at your own house when you have time. Always leave your host's house in good shape. Alright, it's time to go check out the Black Hills. Thank you so much, Russell. The warm night stay was much appreciated. I'm a little bit lost in the Black Hills, but this is kind of a nice place to be lost. Here was a typical camp meal consisting of eggs, butter, and seeds. On this trip, calorie count took priority over healthy meals. Eggs were often my go-to meal. I carried some egg containers with me so I could travel with fresh eggs. Every so often, I would purchase a meal at a restaurant, but this is how most of my meals were on the road. Last night was my first camping night under 40 degrees. It's about 6:30 right now. I'm just making a morning fire to get warmed up. After today, I'll start the journey southward towards Colorado through Wyoming. I don't quite have the equipment for this kind of camping, so I've got to get to some warmer weather. It's time to head towards Wyoming. So I'm on my way up to Little Devil's Tower in Custer State Park. I wanted to stop here before heading south to Wyoming. And today is awesome because, as you can tell, I've got the sun hat out. It's nice and sunny and it's warm. Check it out. Shorts. So I just made it up to the top of Little Devil's Tower in South Dakota. Check out the view. After an amazing time in South Dakota, it was time to cross into the next state. What looked like a peaceful ride through the prairie was actually a wind-whipped disaster waiting to happen. I made my way to the nearest campsite to avoid a mishap. Probably not gonna sleep so well tonight. Look at this. So I was on my way down to one of the state parks in Wyoming, and I just got hit by this huge gust of wind. It knocked me to the other side of my lane. From then on out, it was really strong wind gusts coming at me. I was going 40 miles per hour in a 70 at a 45-degree angle. That was by far the most dangerous situation I've been in yet. Well, the wind finally died down. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I think I did a pretty good job with wind protection. Later that day, a most unexpected disaster struck in the depths of my backpack. A container carrying about 1 cup of butter exploded during my ride, which was a nightmare to clean. In the meantime, I searched for another couchsurfing host in Cheyenne, Wyoming for the days to come. So I'm just enjoying the last few moments in my couchsurfing host's home in Cheyenne, Wyoming. This is the room I stayed in. It was such a cozy, nice place to sleep for a couple nights. They're both artists, so their house is filled with art that they've made. Really beautiful, unique pieces made with layered cloth, portraying some of the landscapes around this area of the country. And this stay was incredible. I felt so at home. It's a very homey home. After Wyoming, I arrived at the place where the mountains are, Colorado. So I am at my hostel in Fort Collins, Colorado. Apparently couch surfers get 1 free night stay. So let's go explore the hostel. The Fernway Hostel was a very cozy place to stay. It was established in a house built in 1905, which gives it a unique historic feel. Colorado for me was a time of reunion and great hospitality. I caught up with some old friends and met some really great couch surfers who offered me more than I could ask for. In Fort Collins, after staying in this hostel, I stayed with a couch surfing host, Sabrina, who was a professional pianist. My next stop was Boulder, just a short ride away. In Boulder, I stayed with another couchsurfing host, Ian, who was an engineer and world traveler. Perfect hiking weather. I'm pretty sure Frodo and Samwise came through here on their way to Mordor. I feel kind of like a hobbit today. Maybe I'll be Billiam Baggins. Colorado had an abundance of natural areas and wildlife. Despite the once again cold weather, I was able to get a lot of hikes in. After roughly 2 weeks of pure excitement and adventure on the road, I took a detour into complete silence and went on an adventure into the mind. Just outside of Boulder is a place called Estes Park, where I partook in a 5-day silent meditation retreat. It was a 5-day silent experience just as powerful as any travel adventure I'd ever been on. As an added bonus, I got to see an animal that I've never seen before, the elk, and it happened to be rutting season. Just leaving Denver, leaving my buddy Dante's place. It's cold again. It's been raining for like 3 days straight. Beard's getting a little scraggly. My last stop in Colorado was Colorado Springs, where I met with my friend Alex. Where are we?
We're up here at the beautiful St. Mary's Falls.
It's pretty neat.
How neat is that?
I spent a couple of days at Alex's house. The next day I would exit Colorado and head further south, but not before playing with some pups.
False dawn of the morning, the moon of popping trees. I cut across the south field with the stalks cut to my knees. I just use the rain for my raincoat in the mist, while I'm looking for the heart wherever it exists. Looking for the heart wherever it exists.
I'm currently out here in northern Texas, near the border of Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Texas. And good thing I checked my phone for the weather tomorrow, because apparently we're supposed to get major thunderstorms here tonight, and there's been a bunch of flash flooding in Oklahoma. So there's a huge wave of thunderstorms coming over this area pretty soon. So I think I'm gonna call it quits on the camping and go find a warm spot to sleep. With no hotel in sight, I found myself in a not so cozy, bright, and smelly corner of a 24-hour truck stop. I seriously considered asking a trucker if I could crawl in and share their cab with them. This would be the start of a long string of sleepless nights. Pretty happy with my decision to leave. It's really coming down. Today I am taking what I'm calling a sloth day. I'm trying to catch up on sleep. I think I got 1 hour last night. When I looked at the weather radar this morning, basically the whole area surrounding me was having flash flood warnings. So I decided to stay put. I'm tired. At least it's warm. Hopefully I can find myself a nice camp tonight and get a full night's sleep. Well, this has turned out to be the worst night yet. Now, I might seem a bit grumpy here, but keep in mind, I've slept about 2 hours total during the past 2 nights. That, and this video was taken after I chased down my inflatable pillow in my boxers after the wind blew it away from my shelter. I was sleeping under an awning in a park. People in the area must have thought I was homeless because someone left $40 attached to my bike. After escaping the storms of the north, I made my way further south into the heart of Texas. Alright, so I made it to Abilene, Texas, and I found my campsite right away. It's a beautiful night. The sun's been out all day. So I'm gonna set up camp, eat, and go to bed. I gotta make up for the lack of sleep from the last 2 nights. But yeah, this is a nice spot. So everything was great about last night, except for the fact that 10 hours later, everything I own is covered in spider webs. Literally everything. I thought I did a good job of keeping things off the ground so nothing would get on my bike. No. Little did I know, but right around this time during the trip, I contracted a potentially fatal spider-related illness that would affect me in the weeks to come.
Bottles of wine, laying down by the riverside. To kiss once would be a crime, let's kiss all the time. Roll up your sleeves, lay your arms on mine, and let's look into each other's eyes. Pack your things and I'll unpack mine, let's lay it all on the line. Oh darling, please, lay your head on my shoulder. I wanna watch the world in the arms of my lover. And under those trees, you let my heart out. And under those trees, you showed me what love was all about.
Just doing a little urban hiking in Austin, Texas. It's like 85 degrees. I'm loving it. This is a really nice city. I can definitely see why my buddy lives here. It's time to explore.
Laying on our road, and this road was made for two. And I assume that is you. Oh darling, please, lay your head on my shoulder. 'Cause under those trees, you let my heart out. Well, sweet little darling.
After a great couple of days at my friend's house in Austin, I came here to a campsite just outside of San Antonio. I just traded someone a USB cord for time in the kayak. This would be one of my last stops before crossing into Mexico. It's a really nice, peaceful spot, but there is a really ugly shoreline on the other side. Some big factory of some sort. And I wanted to talk about crossing the border tonight because it's something I'm actually super nervous about. So yeah, I'm nervous. And I'm often asking myself, why? I'll pause here to spare you the overly dramatic introduction to Mexico from Nervous Wreck Bill. I had reason to be nervous, and it's true that there are dangerous places in Mexico, especially at the border. But one important lesson I learned during this trip is that you don't really know until you go. And so I found myself having to correct a lot of my strange assumptions about Latin America during this trip. Am I doing this? Spiders everywhere. My whole bike is once again covered in spiders. And when I came out of my tent, I went through a giant spider web and I can feel the web all over me still. Never camp under trees in Texas. So today I'm hanging out at my couch surfing host's home in northern San Antonio. It's a really nice place. And she is from Brazil, and she is also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And she's going to let me partake in one of her classes today, so I'm probably gonna get my ass kicked. Just got my ass kicked in jiu-jitsu. Now I'm out here in a parking lot in San Antonio trying to ease the pain. Just cooking myself up some eggs. Need some protein after that one. One day away from Mexico. I really need to figure my stuff out. So I'll head toward Laredo in about 30 minutes once I'm done chowing. And I'm gonna just prepare for the unknown, Mexico.
And here comes you. Lights on through the night. She's a part of me. I'm falling apart inside. Oh, darling, please lay your head on my shoulder. I wanna watch the world in the arms of my lover.
This is when my mysterious illness really started to make itself known. It started with headaches and slight pain in my joints. I went to the doctor just in case before crossing the border. Just had a bite at Rudy's. Freaking out a little bit. It's time to cross into Mexico. Doctor's visit went all right. They tested my pee, nothing wrong. Waiting on some blood samples. I just wrote up a map of my route. It's really hot. I'm hoping I start feeling better. This is definitely not the situation I wanted to be in going into Mexico. I gotta go get some pesos and hit the road. Bye. The border crossing was quick, a little too quick. The customs agent did a quick inspection of my bike and looked at some of my papers before waving me through. I asked him, "Don't you need to see my passport?" He said no, and I kept moving. Given that I was very nervous because I had heard a lot of horror stories about the border, it did not seem like a good idea to park my bike on the side of the road and look for assistance to get my passport stamped. Instead, I took to the highway and headed straight for Monterrey. A costly mistake that would haunt me later. After nearly 3 hours of riding, I finally arrived at Gabby's house. I would stay at her house for 5 days while I eased into this Mexican experience. Little did I know, Gabby and her family would be more than accommodating, and they would give me much more than I could have expected. Getting some more hiking in. ¿A dónde vamos?
A la antena del Cerro de la Silla, el paraíso.
Going to the top of Monterrey. So this is what Monterrey looks like. Yeah. I had a really great first impression of Mexico, and Gabby was the perfect host to explore with. We saw a lot of animals during our many hikes. We even ran what was for me a spontaneous 3 and 5K race through Monterrey. We explored quite a lot of the city, and we even went clubbing one night. So I'm just hanging out at my host's house, Gabby. It's day 4 in Mexico, and I've had the most incredible past 3 days here. I came across the border quite nervous, not knowing what to expect, and I have seriously experienced nothing but good vibes from people here. Approaching the border was intense. I was brought around to the customs agent. He asked me some questions in Spanish that I fumbled through. Eventually he asked me for my papers. He told me I was good to go, and I was really confused because I didn't even have to show him my passport. And then after that, I cruised to Nuevo Laredo, right across the border, and things were quite sketchy. After 5 minutes in that city and getting onto the main drag, it's been nothing but a good experience, an incredible experience. I was expecting to have to lay low, not do a whole lot around the city, but I have felt so comfortable here, and it's mostly thanks to Gabby and her family. And Gabby's a teacher, so yesterday I went to her school, and then eventually she called me into her class to come and tell them about this trip so they could practice their listening skills in English. And that was a lot of fun. I just can't even imagine what the rest of Mexico is going to be like, or Latin America. I'm kind of in a little bit of a state of shock from what just happened. It was the best 3 days I could have expected. And also, after I crossed the border, I stopped feeling sick. And I went to the doctor, and they suggested that it might have been due to bug bites that I had, which they think were a bunch of spider bites because of those damn spiders that I was camping with. So now I head toward Matehuala, which is about a 4-hour drive south from here. I have a host there from Couchsurfing waiting for me. So who knows what's going to happen next. This has been so fun.
80 nightingales, hear them sing, calling your trouble with the game. Streams don't sleep. There's no such thing as safe and sound. Most of what we do.
Then, right in the middle of my 5-hour ride to Matehuala, disaster struck. My bike broke down in the middle of nowhere. I was able to push the bike to a roadside restaurant. I was very lucky because there was nothing else in sight. Some very generous truckers who were eating at the restaurant came by to see what the problem was. Without my asking, they offered to help, and they worked for hours before having to hit the road again. We got the spark plug changed, but that didn't help the problem. I was very appreciative of their generosity.
Que a veces
¿Sí lo quema?
sí.
Sí, los quema.
So luckily the restaurant I am at has rooms for people to spend the night. I'm not sure how much they cost yet, but probably not much. It's pretty hard to be bummed out about this whole thing when you have puppies to play with. So this is my room for the breakdown night. I don't think anyone else is sleeping in here with me, but there is someone's stuff here. So the landlady here is also a farmer, and she has some really interesting crops, including a thing called nopal, which is a cactus, and this is part of it. Very sweet.
Esta ya está muy madura.
Comer?
Sí.
Sí. Gracias.
Déjame. Tiene muchas espinas. Esa.
Wow.
Pruébala. Pruébala.
In addition to puppies, there were other animals on the farm as well. Hey, buddy. Hey, little piggies. The owner was extremely supportive while I was staying on his farm. He came by my room and assured me that this was a safe area. The next morning, they called a mechanic who came out to the farm to help me. It's time to take it for a quick test ride. We're not there yet. So I just had 3 more guys help me with my motorcycle. We couldn't get a hold of the mechanic, but some truckers who were coming by stopped and took a look at it. And it looks like some fuel was not flowing. I don't know a whole lot about motorcycles, but through the petcock area. Told me to maintain a high level of gasoline and I should be good. Morning has arrived and the mechanic from yesterday is back. He's working on the motorcycle right now. He just took the carburetor off. Just hoping for the best. Oh yeah. Sounds like the motorcycle's gonna work. I'm gonna try to make it to Matehuala now.
Out in the field where you found the pearl at the stillest point, the turning world for the love of night. Please tell no lies to me. Everybody's talking, but it's still unknown. I'm underground trying to make heaven my home. For the love of night, please stay so close to me. So close to me.
Although I was able to ride, the motorcycle still needed some care that the mechanic couldn't provide without a shop. I was looking forward to getting to a city where I could find some more help. During my ride, I had to maintain a high level of gasoline. So I finally made it to my couch surfer's house in Matehuala. It's a really nice, comfy home. Got my own room, warm shower. So thank you to Marcelo for hosting me. And an added bonus here, look what he's got outside. Hi guys. Hey. He's 2 months old. This is the backyard. Finally I can rest and forget about the motorcycle problems for a little while. Unfortunately my time in Matehuala will be short and tomorrow I'm gonna go to San Luis Potosi so I can find a motorcycle shop that can determine what's going on with my bike because it's still not acting right. But for now, I am going to relax. I arrived in San Luis Potosi feeling a bit stressed about the bike. I could go just fast enough for the highway, but I was always worried about breaking down again. I was also feeling quite ill. At this point, I had daily headaches and my body was feeling weak. I also had a lot of lower back pain. Soon, I would discover the cause. Luckily, the excitement of the trip kept me going. Ahoy! Just made it to my host's house in San Luis Potosi. Tatiana, she's from Germany/France, living here in SLP. She's got an awesome place here. Check out the view.
30. Muchas gracias.
After riding through the city, I spent the day exploring with Tatiana before coming back to her house to a French meal cooked by her boyfriend, who was an incredible cook. We had a great meal and then a great night out.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock. I'm so tired. Last night I went out with this French couple that I'm staying with, and it was their friend's despedida, his farewell party. So it ended up being a very late night. I think we got home around 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a lot of fun. Those guys know how to party. And I haven't drank in a while, so this morning I kind of feel like I'm melting. Don't look at me like that. So today my mission is to make it to Querétaro. I'll spend 2 days in Querétaro, then off to Mexico City. I'm gonna miss this place. These guys are awesome hosts.
So I just made it to my hostel in Querétaro, and it's really awesome here. It's a really cozy place. There aren't many people checked in right now. I made it here just before some torrential downpours hit, so that was lucky. Looks like I've got one roommate. I don't know who it is yet. This place it cost me about 370 pesos for 2 nights, which is under $10 per night, basically. They've got a kitchen, nice bathrooms, nice comfy beds. I can tell this place is going to be one of my favorite cities already, just from driving through it on the way here. It was unbelievable, really beautiful city. Tons of colorful buildings, really cool architecture, and it's surrounded by big rolling hills and some mountains. So I'm excited to explore tomorrow. It's time to search for food. I think I'll get me some nice tacos tonight. I was very happy with my stay in Querétaro, but unfortunately it was overshadowed by my mysterious illness. During my time in Querétaro, I started experiencing mild hallucinations. I would see things, like a face in the distance or someone standing on my side, turn to look and there would be nothing there. This worrying symptom coincided with a call I would receive in Mexico City, telling me that the doctor had been trying to get a hold of me. Alright, it's time for Mexico City. Mexico City was a nightmare for me. I know a lot of people go there to admire the grandness and historical features of the city, but for me, it was the worst part of the trip. It was one thing after another. First, the traffic near Mexico City was by far the most dangerous, and it took me several hours just to get to my hostel after I entered the city. Next was the fact that I got pulled over by a cop as I was moving my bike from a hostel to a parking garage, 2 blocks worth of riding, and I didn't bring my helmet. It was a stupid mistake which cost me about $50, which, not surprisingly, I didn't receive an actual ticket for. Lastly, I was feeling terrible. My head was pounding and my body was weak. I figured it was from all of the fumes I was breathing in on the road.
And just to top off all the craziness of the day, I got a text from my parents telling me that my blood results came back from the clinic I was in Laredo, Texas when I was feeling bad, and I tested positive for Rocky Mountain spotted fever.
According to the Center for Disease Control, RMSF is the deadliest tick-borne illness if not treated quickly. The outlook for RMSF is not good if you wait too long to take antibiotics. I was now 15 days into the incubation period, which was quite late.
Luckily, the doctors prescribed antibiotics just in case when I saw him, so now I've been taking those. I'm even considering stopping the trip altogether because I want to focus on healing and getting this bacteria out of my body. So I don't know what to do. So I checked into a hotel to get some much needed rest and to just kind of figure stuff out. So I'm hoping the next few days will turn around and hopefully I can get this spotted fever out of my system. And
I don't wanna be here all the time, and I don't wanna see this shit, and I don't wanna feel this anytime. You think you're fine, but the way that you conceal it is a pack of cigarettes and boxed wine. But in the summer you were chasing me and carrying on. I feel it, can't you feel it down in your bones? You tell me stories when we talk on the phone.
I decided to head to a smaller, more peaceful city called Tehuacan so I could get some rest. I really enjoyed my time in Tehuacan. I saw no other backpackers in the city, so I think it was off the beaten path. My hotel was also swarming with hundreds of military personnel for some training nearby. I was riding a jam-packed elevator with some of them, and one of their guns wedged its way into my grip. I'm glad no one saw that.
See, I ain't fine. When you think you're fine.
The ride to Oaxaca was one of the most beautiful rides of the whole trip. Tall cactus littered the mountainsides after every turn.
But in the summer you were chasing me and carrying on. I feel it, can't you feel it down in your bones? You tell me stories when we talk on the phone.
Unfortunately, this beautiful ride would be coupled with one of my most dangerous motorcycle experiences to date. After seeing a nice place to stop and take some pictures, I decided to turn around. As I turned to make my way back to the lookout, I misjudged the steepness and slant of the road, and I tipped the bike. This was a horrible place to fall, as cars were flying by, and a swerve on this road is a potential swerve off of the mountain. I dragged the bike to the side of the road. Thanks to the adrenaline in my body, I was able to lift the bike out of harm's way. After I made it to the lookout to rest from my near disaster, the bike stopped working due to a flooded engine. I thought I might have to spend the night in the middle of nowhere. Luckily, after troubleshooting, 2 hours later, I had the bike up and running, but still, major bike problems continued. I made my way to Oaxaca, where I would meet with Gabby again. We stayed in a big hostel right in the middle of town. We spent several days exploring this amazing city. So I'm here in Monte Alban, where the Zapotecas have one of the first settlements in the Americas. This place was established probably in about 500 BC, más o menos, and it's pretty incredible. We also spent time at Chris's house, our couchsurfing host. I later had an amazing exchange with Chris, where I later hosted her in Costa Rica while she traveled the Americas by bicycle. My next stop would be the deep south of Mexico. After arriving at my host's house in Tuxtla, I went straight for the mountains to explore. My antibiotics caused me to have some strange side effects. One in particular was an intense sensitivity to light. I had to stay clear of the sun during the next 3 weeks. It's absolutely gorgeous in here. I'm finally to a tropical place. Although I still have to stay out of the sun because, soy vampiro. I'm a vampire. I almost just walked into one of the biggest spider webs I've ever seen. It stretches across this whole trail. I don't know, he looks pretty mean to me. I also had some brutal nausea. It was really difficult to rest when there were so many cool things to see and do during the trip. I'm currently at Cañón del Sumidero, just outside of Tuxtla, Chiapas. And I've been told that there are monkeys here. So now my day revolves around finding a monkey. I was feeling horrible on my way here. I almost puked on the road because of my pill this morning. It seems like every day the stomach aches are getting worse. And I was all bundled up to stay away from the sun, so I got overheated and it's all worth it. My next stop was San Cristobal de las Casas, which was definitely one of my favorite stops on the trip. San Cristobal was a peaceful mountain town with a perfect climate. This was one of those cities that I would love to live in someday. I explored with a group of travelers from many different parts of the world who were all staying in the same hostel as me. This was a great place to rest for a few days. In San Cristobal, I met a fellow rider, Johnston, from California, who was also heading to Guatemala. We decided to ride together for a few days. Johnston and I arrived at the Mexico-Guatemalan border after an amazing 2-hour ride from San Cristobal. This is when my mistake at the US-Mexico border would catch up with me. Because I did not register my bike in Mexico, I could not register my bike in Guatemala. The agent just gave me a roll of the eyes and told me to just keep riding without one. And to make things even messier, I wasn't able to get a passport stamp because I didn't have a stamp from Mexico. After speaking with a manager at the office, it was decided that I would pay a fine so I could get the stamp from Guatemala. $50 later, I was back on the road again. Luckily, Johnson had a GoPro, so these shots are credited to him. Having a roadside snack. Just made it to the hotel in Guatemala. The drive in here was incredible. Unbelievable mountains, and it got tropical really fast. And we've just made it to our hostel in Huehuetenango. It's a lot bigger city than I realized. The hotel we stayed at was full of tropical plants, including fruit trees. Unfortunately, my experience was once again overshadowed by feelings of sickness. The powerful antibiotics were doing a number on my system.
Second day in Guatemala, and I'm feeling sick. Like I have a virus or something. I know this can be a symptom of doxycycline. I'm on day 13 of 14, so I'm hoping that's just what it is. So for the next couple days I'm just gonna rest, try to find a good hostel to get some sleep in. I'm a little bummed out because this place is so cool, but I don't have the energy to do much. Today I'm going to Lake Atitlan, which is a really popular place to visit in Guatemala, so I'm excited to see what that's like. Should be pretty incredible. There's I think several volcanoes in the area. I'll ride over there with Johnston. Just hit my first major pothole. Almost got stuck. Thing came out of nowhere. Hopefully my bike's all right. hotel room right on the lake in Guatemala, Lago Atitlan. It's a really beautiful area, and I'm really disappointed I cannot explore very much because I feel like crap. I have both the antibiotic side effects and some kind of virus that's making my head hurt and major congestion. I'm at a hotel right now that costs like $8 a night, so it's a little bit sketchy, but it's definitely a place where I can rest. Tomorrow I'm going to Antigua. I will just rest for 2 full days. I finish my pills tomorrow, thank God, and yeah, just try to get over this illness that I have.
It's about 6 a.m. I think my fever broke last night. I feel a little bit better, but still feel like crap. Time to go to Antigua.
I said farewell to Johnston as he planned to spend more time at the lake. He was a great riding partner, and we hoped to meet down the road. This was another one of the best rides of the trip, once again through the tropical mountains of Guatemala. On this ride, it was evident that there had been recent landslides and earthquakes that shook things out of place. Looks like the bridge got destroyed. Wish me luck. For all you motorcycle riders out there, you know that this stream is no match for a KLR 650. But for me at the time, this was a big deal. In this incredible hostel in Antigua, Guatemala. And guess what? It's time for the last pill. Done. Let's go explore this hostel. Triple bunks. Just enjoying the sunrise on the top of my hostel during my last couple hours in Antigua. It's unbelievable here. I think the highlight of my trip was coming up here 2 nights ago, watching lava spew out of that volcano. Can't see it now. While the moon was rising between the mountains behind us.
all while talking to a NASA scientist who's staying here about how quickly we'll get to Mars. My body still feels weak, but I feel like my cold has cleared up, and it's now almost been 2 full days since I stopped antibiotics, so I'm feeling better. Today I crossed the border into El Salvador, and to be honest, this was all the time the most feared part of the trip for me, because the country is really dealing with a lot of gang activity. So I'll just kind of fly through. Shouldn't take long to make it through. It's quite a small country, so, but I am nervous, and doesn't help that I still have low energy. Just sitting through a protest. Been here for about 15 minutes. The guys next to me have been here since 6 a.m. The police just went to the front of the line to wherever the protest is being held with all their riot gear. So the guys next to me told me that it's going to be a dangerous situation. I can't see, it's about a half kilometer in front of us, but people have been here since 6, 7 a.m. So things are a little bit tense right now. Major protest holding up traffic, so I am very late to get to the border. It's very hot out. Hoping I can make it to the border without hitting more protests. I'm not sure what it's about, but there's tons of people on the road, so I had to take a detour. Made it past the protests. It did not turn violent, which is good. There were probably 100 cops there and military or something. I'm about 5 miles to the border. Just filled up with gas. All right, to the border.
Little did I know I would have to spend 3 full days at the border, making up for my past mistakes. The 2 issues at hand were that I didn't have a stamp in my passport from Mexico, which was a no-go for entering El Salvador, and I hadn't registered my motorcycle in the previous countries, so there was a break in the chain in the registration of my motorcycle. Just getting absolutely screwed at the border. Don't think I'll be able to make it into El Salvador tonight. Really worried about not being able to find a hotel around here. I've been here for 6 hours now. So I ran into a problem. I don't have permission to have my motorcycle in Guatemala. Because of that, I don't have permission to bring it into El Salvador. I talked to an officer who was giving me some real shady looks, and I thought he was going to take me in or something, because he walked me over to the customs agency and was questioning me a bunch, and rightly so. I mean, I did the stupid thing by not getting it registered. But anyway, I crossed back over to the Guatemala side to look for a lawyer, because someone suggested I do that and they could sign off that the bike is here legally. And then I ran into some guys who are called helpers. In my experience, they've been guys who try to rip you off and take advantage of you. And this time they came up to me and I told them, no guys, I don't need to change money, I don't need to do this or this or this. And they're like, well, what's your problem? And I told them my whole problem. One of them works at the customs office, and he went in with his uniform and he told me he's gonna get me the papers I need. I'm gonna look them over very carefully. At least the border is not as sketchy as I thought it would be. It's actually very busy here, mostly with truckers. There's probably a 3-mile line of truckers. Apparently a lot of them set up hammocks underneath the truck bed and spend the night here, so it's gonna be a busy night here. Still at the border. It's been about, I don't know, 12 hours or so. And I'm just waiting for some customs officials to get my paperwork approved. It's been a long process. Part of the 3 days at the border were spent driving 18 straight hours to Mexico and back with a guy who I just met. A guy who I put a lot of trust into, and who offered the trip to Mexico without asking for payment. I paid him, of course, and later, after getting to know him better down the road, he asked me to be the godfather of his daughter. He is a friend to this day. Just about back in Mexico. During these 3 days, I daydreamed a lot about visiting the beautiful beaches of Costa Rica. I wasn't really sure if I would make it past this hurdle. It was very possible that I would lose the bike. The trip to Mexico was made to clear up the passport issue, and it was headed by more of these guys who work in between borders. I still don't know exactly what happened at the border. It's still a bit of a mystery, but I had my papers and I had my stamps. I also had a lighter wallet, but I was ready to ride again. Well, after all the mishap at the border, after hours and hours of waiting, I'm finally in El Salvador. And really for me, El Salvador was kind of like entering Mordor. I had heard a lot of pretty rough things about it, even from people who have, just traveled through. So far, I'm finding nothing but good people. And now I'm being rewarded with the thing I've been seeking since I left Canada. Finally within eyes view of the ocean. Check it out. I enjoyed some food and then continued on my bike. My first destination was Enrique's house, the guy who drove me to Mexico and back, to hang out with him and his family for a couple of days. Enrique built his own house and had many different fruit trees and animals on his property. I met his family and relaxed at their house. I even found time to get a haircut and trim my beard. Say hi. Just leaving Enrique's house on the coast of El Salvador, off to El Tunco, El Salvador for the night, and then tomorrow to Honduras, Nicaragua, and then finally Costa Rica. I was feeling pretty good riding through El Salvador. The riding conditions were okay. No traffic, but pretty dangerous pothole-laden streets. El Tunco is a laid-back surfer town on the coast of El Salvador. I spent a couple of nights here soaking up some salt water. I got to know some locals and really enjoyed the overall feeling of El Salvador. I spent one night in Zacatecoluca and tried the famous food of El Salvador called pupusa. I finally felt like I had some of my energy back as I neared Honduras. Well, hello there! Right now in Honduras there are tons of protests, violent protests, because of the current elections going on in the country. One of the candidates is apparently meddling with the election results, so there are widespread protests. So we'll see if I run into any manifestations or anything like that on the way. Hopefully not, but yeah. El Cuco was a nice place to wrap up my pleasant time in El Salvador. Now it was time to cross a small portion of Honduras. I decided it was not a good idea to stop in Honduras due to violent protests. Crossing from El Salvador to Honduras took me a lot more time due to more complications with my registration. This time things were in order, but the border was busy and they had to spend extra time looking over my documents. Well, hour 10 at the border, can't get across again. I spent one night in a hotel at the border. Early morning ride through Honduras, land of good people, and also land of many potholes. Done with the Nicaragua crossing, took about 4 hours, and now I'm on my way to León. The first thing I did in Nicaragua was get another cut and shave. It was much needed in this heat. Feeling good. Feel like I've lost some years. During my time in León, I stayed at the office of an organization from my hometown called Project Minnesota León. They do great work in assisting Nicaraguan communities in realizing their projects, as well as facilitate student exchange. Upon arriving in Nicaragua, I did some research about bringing my bike into Costa Rica. Someone had approached me at the beach and was interested in buying my bike. He told me about the really expensive import taxes in Costa Rica, and he made me an offer on the bike. I thought about my future situation, to live in Costa Rica and teach English, and that I would need a bike, but not necessarily a big bike like a KLR 650. After weighing my options, it was best to sell the KLR 650 in Nicaragua and buy a used, already imported bike in Costa Rica. This ended up saving me a lot of money. So the rest of my trip in Nicaragua was done by bus. I would do plenty of riding in Costa Rica with my new bike. Spending one night in Managua, Nicaragua. It's called Pandora Hostel. There's not much going on in this part of the city, but the hostel itself is awesome. Someone's hands snuck their way through the window and into my bag during the night. He made away with my hot sauce and bug spray before I made some noise to scare him off. I made an easy, painless crossing at the border of Nicaragua and Costa Rica. The rest of the tour was completed at a later time on a different kind of motorcycle, which I had purchased in Costa Rica after selling the KLR 650. I was now finally to my destination. The motorcycle tour was ending, and my adventure in Costa Rica was just beginning. After the tour, I officially moved to Costa Rica and began teaching English. I now teach in San Jose, and I get myself to the beach to surf whenever I get the chance. I'm also often exploring the incredible nature of Costa Rica. Keep an eye out for more videos. This trip gave me more faith in humanity and in the kindness of people. It was an incredible ride. Thanks to all of the people who helped me on this journey, and thanks for watching.
Take me down to that whiskey mountain and teach me how to finger the sky. I wanna be responsible for all the love in your life. Well, sitting on the edge of your bed, I turn around and I'm so sick of your frowns. And I don't know how I ended up here in a place I don't call home. Yep, well, she walks and she talks and she tells me I'm a fool. You're such a fool, and I know there's nothing I can do. You're such a fool.